Okay, we have nothing.
Yeah, we don't have any.
This will balance off your social.
Excuse me. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Wednesday, September 5th session of the Cape Cod Regional Government Assembly of Delegates. I'll call this meeting to order, and we will begin with a moment of silence to honor our troops who have died in service to our country and all those serving our country in the armed forces. Now we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The clerk will call the roll.
Richard Anderson.
Here.
Cheryl Andrews.
Here.
Ronald Bergstrom.
Here.
Leo Kukunis.
Here.
Christopher Kanega.
Here.
James Killian.
Here.
Marcia King.
Here.
Teresa Martin.
Here.
Deborah McCutcheon.
Here.
Spiro Mitrokostas.
Here.
John Ullman.
Here.
Paul Pilcher.
Here.
Patrick Princey.
Here.
Anthony Scalise. Julia Taylor.
Here.
Mr. Speaker, we have a quorum present with 95.45% of the delegates present, 4.55% absent.
Thank you. I'll now need a motion to approve today's calendar of business.
Motion to approve the calendar of business.
Second.
Moved and seconded. There's no additions or correction. All those in favor of approval of the calendar of business say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, you should have received a copy of the Journal of August 15, 2012. Is there any additions or corrections to the journal? Hearing none, I need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the Journal of August 15th.
Second.
David moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and now one abstain. We now have communications from the Board of Regional Commissioners, and I see the chair of the commissioners here. Presenting us with a resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good afternoon, everyone. What I gave you was a request for transfers for the AmeriCorps account. Each year we budget a certain amount of money, and then when we know which accounts that we are expecting to fund for the year, we ask that you transfer the appropriate amount of dollars within that larger sum of $43,000 something into those accounts. So that's all that is. Today we actually voted a proclamation declaring next week, September 9th through the 15th, as Suicide Prevention Week. As you probably know, our Human Services Department, under the leadership of Beth Albert, has been working specifically in the last 2 years to really help the coalition move forward with some of its objectives in terms of reaching people with depression and other issues that sometimes cause people to take their own lives. The suicide rate on the Cape is higher than any other city or town in the Commonwealth. And the coalition has worked very hard to try to reach out and do a lot of work in education and prevention. And so next week is the week in which they are going to continue that effort under the direction of Maura Weir. And they made us an excellent presentation today, and we certainly support the work they have done. They're having at their meeting next week, which is next Thursday, I think from 11:15 to 12:45. They meet in the Harbor View Room, and they will continue to reach out to people who really are in need. We also met with a couple of volunteers, one from the town of Orleans, from the health department in Orleans, and one who works in the health department here in the county, giving us an update on the hoarder task force. Some of you may have seen some reality shows about people who hoard and the consequences, the huge consequences it has for people, both physically, mentally, socially, to be completely enveloped by things, and they have a very great difficulty in allowing themselves to dispose or to transfer or to give away, or whatever it is, excess possessions that they might have. So this group has been working very hard. They're a volunteer group. They really don't have any money, but they're doing a lot of work in the community to try to raise awareness for people who do somehow have that obsession to want to hoard. And I shouldn't say this, but anyway, I'm not going to say anything about that. But anyway, they're doing really good work, and they do need to raise awareness, particularly as a resource to people. That happened to me about 4 or 5 years ago when someone called me and said, I have a friend who has a really serious problem in hoarding, and I don't know what to do about it. Well, I didn't know what to do about it either. I didn't know what resources were available, what could be done. And so we got together, we worked with our Board of Health, we worked with our town council, and we came up with a plan to help this woman, certainly by reaching out to her next of kin, who was extremely helpful in helping us help her dispose of a lot of the things that she had accumulated and just simply for whatever reason could not dispose of. So it is a serious problem. It's a problem here on the Cape, and we have some people who are working actively to help in that. The last issue we took up today, and you received a copy of it, is a letter from the Sandwich Board of Selectmen regarding the wastewater planning in Sandwich. They wanted to let us know what they've been doing over the last few years, the efforts that they have made, and it was an extremely well-written and thoroughly complete and documented story, if you will, of how Sandwich is dealing with their wastewater issues. And we felt as commissioners that we needed to acknowledge the effort that the Board of Selectmen made in putting that document together. And so we discussed it today, and Frank Panorfi from the Board of Selectmen was there, and Linnell Grunman. So we had two Sandwich Selectmen this afternoon in the discussion. And it was very, very helpful to us because it gave the commissioners a picture of how another community has been working to resolve its wastewater issues, what it can do on its own, where it needs help, where the county might be able to help. And helping is not creating a taxing authority, which I think I've said before, but I need to repeat that that is not an option. And but they were concerned because they've heard a lot of rumblings and emails and stories about having an MWRA for Cape Cod. But I think it was a very good discussion, and they told us some of the things that they faced and how they had to work through the issues and how much money they've had to spend as a community to do the kind of planning that you have to do if you want to have a wastewater plan that's really going to work. And so they look to us for ways in which the county or the collaborative could be more helpful to them. And obviously one way is funding, and we don't know yet how that will actually work out. That would obviously require some kind of legislation in some way, shape, or form. But we're not there yet, but at least we're learning what other communities are doing, and they're learning from each other too, and that's a good thing, and that's what this is all about. So we were very grateful that they took the time to be so thorough in writing us this letter and giving us a real insight into the difficulties that communities are facing in dealing with their wastewater issues. That's my report.
Any questions from the board for Commissioner Flynn?
If anybody didn't get the letter, I have some extra copies here if you'd like.
Mary Pat, have you done anything else on the recommendations of this, not only of the Special Commission on County Governance, but of also the task force that you employed to look at county government before that? I can't think of the name of it now, but I mean, you had some recommendations on the table. Have you organized any, I mean, you were going to look at how these could be implemented, who would have to do what. Have you gone any further on that?
We have a plan, but we're not going to do any more execution of that until after November 6th. Because I think it's important to, I mean, we could work on it, but obviously there are going to be 2 people elected, and one of us will stay, and it's possible that one of us may not stay, and there may be a new member. And we think, since there are only 3 of us, that it makes more sense, since we have the plan in place, that before we begin any further discussions or execution of anything, that we wait until after the election.
Okay. Yes, Cheryl.
Right, but your comments with regards to the Sandwich Board of Selectmen, from my perspective, really have an awful lot to do with communication. And listening to you reminded me of an issue I think you maybe were at the table when I asked it, which was if the Board of Regional Commissioners issue a press release, is that press release getting copied to the Assembly of Delegates? And I think the answer was we weren't sure, but we will. And follow-up to that would be, I don't think I've seen any since I raised that issue. So does that mean that there have been no press releases from the county commissioners?
It means, yes, there have not been, but it doesn't mean that we have set the issue aside. In fact, we have had discussions with Paul Nitzwicki at the Cape Cod Commission, because we feel that communication and how we communicate, even though the commission is a department within the county and Paul Nitzwicki reports to the commissioners, they seem to be able to do a little better at communicating than we do. And we want this to be a county effort, not just a commission effort or a county commission effort, but that is our goal for this coming year, to develop a communication plan for the county that includes the commission, includes all the departments, so that we have a formalized process on how we send information out into the community, and not just in response, but rather in a more proactive way. So yes, it is in the planning.
Is Paul still on schedule to deliver a report on the county's efforts on wastewater? He was originally asked to do that by January 1st, I think. Was that?
December, we asked him to move it back to October.
Move it back to like next month?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
I'll move it up rather, not back.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we have communications from County Administrator Mark Zielinski on the Barnstable County Retirement Association.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And today I am wearing my hat as chairman of the Barnstable County Retirement Association. And I have a presentation. Maybe we need to kill half the lights or something. Is that all right? Everybody see that? Maybe it's a little out of focus. Huh? Is that me, or is that really out of focus? Is that better? And this is a presentation that I give periodically, and I've done it to a few boards of selectmen. My fellow board members have been on Nantucket giving it to them. They're a member of the system. So what I'm going to talk about today is just give you an overview of the overall Massachusetts system and the 106 members there. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Barnstable County system and give an overview of our system and our investment performance as of 6:30. And then I'm going to delve briefly into the most recent pension reform, which is Chapter 176 of the Acts of 2011. And there are some changes in there that impact existing members of the system and then new members after April 2nd. So I'll go into those. As you know, there's 105 contributory retirement systems in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Barnstable County Retirement System is a regional system. We have 51 units in our system. All of the towns on Cape Cod except the town of Falmouth are in our system. the water districts, fire districts, school districts, those types of things. Falmouth is their own system. They're one of those 105. The retirement systems are governed by Chapter 32 of the general laws. It provides the statutory framework for administering the retirement plan. Retirement systems at the local level are administered by boards consisting of 5 members, and I'll talk about who's on the local board in just a second. And then our oversight agency of the state is PERAC. That's the Public Employees Retirement Administration Commission. You hear about them frequently in the newspaper. You probably all know this, but prior to 1988, you know that retirement appropriations were on a pay-as-you-go basis, just like health insurance is right now, and as OPEB, as you hear that word, benefits are as well. They're pay-as-you-go. But in 1988 and 1987, they went through a pension reform which required systems to become fully funded within 40 years, and back then that was at 2028. Subsequent reforms over the past few years have extended that deadline to 2040. But now you have to become fully funded. So what we're in now is a period and a process where we pay down the unfunded liability that resulted from all of those years prior to 1988 being on a pay-as-you-go basis. So you'll see that employee contributions were repeatedly increased, and I'll have a slide on that I'll show you. And the big thing, and sometimes one of the distinctions with other systems in the nation that you hear about, is employers are required to pay what's called their assessment or their annually required contribution. They're actually changing the ARC name now as well, but you're required to pay that. Every entity, every unit, every town is required to pay that every year. And that's important because that makes sure that at some point in the future the system is going to be fully funded. So, and those payments go towards the unfunded liability that accrued over time in the past. This is the local board. You see me as the chairman. Pat Flynn is the commissioner's appointee. Currently, their advisory board member is vacant. We expect that will be filled at an advisory board meeting on September 19th. The advisory board is the board statutorily established under Chapter 32, made up of all the treasurers of the units that are members of the Retirement Association. Randy Sherman is an elected member. He's the former fire chief for the town of Yarmouth. And Mark Foley is also an elected member. He's the deputy chief from the town of Eastham. And Deborah Cohen is our executive director. Anytime you have a question about your own retirement, she's the person to call. She knows an awful lot about all of these things that elude me to some extent, but she has the answers. And Jim Quirk is our board counsel, and he also happens to be a selectman in the town of Yarmouth. And I should say, if you have any questions, I prefer that you just blurt them out, and I'll try to answer them as I go along. I think it's a lot easier than trying to pick up the pieces as we go through and get to the end. One of the things I talk about, because I think this is important for people to sort of be aware when they especially disagree with the retirement board and some of the decisions we make sometimes, is we are required by the Code of Mass Regulations. Our fiduciary duty requires us to discharge our duties solely in the interest of members and their beneficiaries. And you see that's for the exclusive purpose of providing benefits to their members, defraying reasonable expenses, etc., etc. I'll go through a couple of these. You see this care, skill, prudence, and diligence under the circumstances, the prudent person rule, so to speak, in terms of investing or conduct of an enterprise, diversifying investments, those types of things. And in accordance with Massachusetts general laws, rules, and regulations. And for the private sector, that's governed by the ERISA Act. That's a federal act governing private. Those are really the standards that apply to us as well. They're not the ERISA standards per se, but they're essentially mirrored in the Mass Code of regulations. In terms of our system, this is our total membership. We have 4,670 active members. Basically, those are employees, current members. Some of you may be members of the system here. Some of you may not. We have 2,547 retirees. Yeah, sure.
Just so I'm following along with you, when you said our system, you mean Barnstable?
Barnstable
and all
County
the-
Regional
and
System,
all the
yep,
towns?
yep.
Thank you.
We have 2,547 people receiving a benefit, retirees or beneficiaries. And we have 637 inactive members. Those are people who have money in the system and may be eligible to draw a benefit in the future, but are not currently having deductions withheld. They're probably not employed or whatever. These are curious statistics, and these, I think you have the handouts. Janice did the handout. I had printed it out and sent it to her last week, I think. I made some changes, just some small changes in some of the deep data, because I just got the data from our actuary. So there's a few, so if you're following along, you'll see some of the numbers are a little bit different. So 740 people between the ages of 70 and 79, 445 between 80 and 89. And actually this number went down. It had been going up steadily over the past few actuarial calculations we did. 100 are 90 and older. That was down from, I think the last one says, that says 105 or 106 in your handout. But typically that 90 and over number is going up. So people are living longer, they're drawing a benefit longer, those types of things. Costing the system more, essentially. This is the contribution rates for people on their regular compensation of how much they're contributing. You see that if you became a member prior to January 1st in 75, you were a 5%er, they're called. There are not as many of those left as much anymore. They are retiring off fast. Most of us all now are 9%ers, or what's called 9+2, because we have 2% of compensation in excess of 30,000 deducted as well. So most of us now are 9+2s. This is our average annual benefit level. It's 21,315. So you see that's a fairly modest pension. It's not a lot of money. You read about the pensions, the $200,000 pensions, and the big benefits that you read about in the paper, but for most people that's not the case at all. You see 71% of our retirees receiving less than $26,388 benefits. 51% are receiving less than $16,788. So we're talking about modest pensions for people to live on in their retirement years. There's been a lot of studies done on sort of how much a Group 1 person contributes to their retirement. A lot of studies have shown that it's about 75 to 80%. That is, the employee themselves are funding 75 to 80% of their...
What is Group 1?
I'm sorry?
What's a Group 1?
Group 1 is all of the clerical, regular employees. And the way it's worded in Chapter 32 of the retirement laws, you have Group 2, which is sort of hazardous duty people. You have Group 4, which is public safety people. Group 3 is state police. And everybody else is Group 1. And basically what it means is you're not really eligible for your maximum pension until you reach 65 in Group 1. Oops. Well, I don't want to do any of those. Those are not all good options there. And just to give you some sort of idea, maybe you can compare this to sort of what the Social Security, and remember we're not a Social Security state, so we don't pay Social Security, and we're not, if you just solely had your public sector work and are eligible for a regular Social Security benefit, you can see from our normal cost, and that's the cost every year that we have to pay into the system just for the person occupying that chair, not the unfunded liability piece, but the person's who's in a particular position for their future potential retirement benefit. The employee pays as a percent of payroll 9.42%, and the employer is paying 5.65%. So that's
Mark,
less than, yes.
I hate to interrupt you, but
No.
you just said something I had never heard. You said,
Who's asking?
me,
Oh,
Cheryl.
I'm sorry.
You asked, you said we are not a Social Security state, and since I've never lived and worked anywhere else in my life, I had
Right.
no idea that other states were different. So can you
Yes.
just clue me in what that means? How many states are versus aren't?
If
Who
you-
decides, the states or the feds?
It's a little more complicated than that. Social Security was originally if you talk to some people, was a voluntary program. So some states joined and some did not. In Massachusetts, and for public sector employees now I'm talking about, they did not. So if you solely worked in the public sector in Massachusetts your entire career, you don't have your 40 quarters. So you wouldn't be eligible for a Social Security retirement benefit.
No, I understand all that. I understand how it applies to Mass. What I didn't recognize, I never realized that other states did. So my question is Massachusetts unusual? Are we typical? Is it 50-50 in this country?
It's not 50-50. It is a minority of states that are not Social Security states. But the good news for us sort of in Congress when we talk about getting rid of the WEP and those windfall elimination provisions, there's some big states that are either not or partially Social Security states. Texas, California, some of those big states have either no membership in Social Security or only partial membership. So it's a whole presentation in and of itself. Now, one thing I just want to clarify because people get confused about it. A few years back, and I think it was mid-80s, Pat would know the answer to this question, everybody started those Medicare deductions. So you'll see that FICA thing on your paycheck, your deduction, very small amount. That was intended to make people eligible for Medicare. So almost everybody in the public sector now in any state is going to be eligible for Medicare. And that's important in the public sector now because Massachusetts has a law that passed in one of these reforms in the Municipal Relief Act that basically once you hit the eligibility for Medicare, your public employer is going to push you on it. You're going to be on Medicare. So that's going to be the primary insurer.
Mark, can I do something?
Yeah, sure.
There? You're talking to an audience of people here who make, I think, what do we make, $1,000 a year? So our deductions are minimal, but now things like the Medicare deduction, is that an all or nothing thing? You're either in or you're out, or is it dependent on how much money you throw in?
I think it's dependent on your salary. It's all a percentage
So
of
if I
salary.
get hit by a truck, they'll only pay a certain percent, Medicare will only pay a very small percentage?
Oh no, your benefit, if you qualify and you are eligible for Medicare, you're eligible for Medicare. It doesn't matter
how much it
No.
And the eligibility for Medicare is
I think it's the same. It's 40 quarters.
Which is 10 years.
Yeah.
In the Barnstable County system.
It's 10 years of employment in having those deductions taken.
And when were those deductions first taken?
85, 82.
Okay, so it's been over
somewhere in the mid-80s. Yeah, that's why I say almost everybody who's employed today at some point in time is going to be eligible. There's a few that are not. Like we have a few of our more senior people on staff who will not be eligible for Medicare. So
why is that? Because
they started before 85. So they didn't. If they started in 75, you didn't need to do they didn't have the deductions taken in 85.
Oh, so if they didn't have deductions taken in the beginning, when this law kicked in, they would not.
They're grandfathered, basically. Grandfathered out, so to speak. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
That's on municipal employees.
That's only people in the system. We're talking about we're talking about the people in the Barnstable County returns.
Yeah, it's any employee. It doesn't matter. Any public sector employee, whether they're in the system or not, doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. Okay, so this was some analysis that PARAC did. This was a presentation given by Joe Connaughton. He's the executive director of PARAC. A couple of years ago, he gave this at the Massachusetts Collector Treasurers Association meeting. And what they did was they looked at sort of two employees, one that was hired at 25 and one that was hired at 35. And if they retired at various points in time at sort of an eligible retirement age, how much would they have contributed to their, sort of actuarially foreseen pension benefit? And you can see a person who's 25 retires at 55, they're paying 115. They've paid 100. They're basically subsidizing the system. They paid 115% of their pension benefit. The one to me that's a little more unusual is maybe the 35%er. I mean, the 35-year-old who retires at 65, they're paying almost 90% of their pension system. pension benefit. So their actuarially foreseen pension benefit, the table says you're going to live to 78, whatever it is for a man or whatever, they would pay 90% of the benefit that they would receive over that period of time, their study indicated. So that's probably a pretty good deal.
Oh, Mark, do you
Yeah.
think, did he do this study to kind of counter the idea that public employees are just milking the public for more than it's...
Yeah, I think it's to give the impression that it's not, the public pension system, the way it's set up, is a pretty good deal. And this was actually before some of the reforms that I'm going to talk about in the future, which have had a tendency to reduce people's pensions and lower system costs. How much, we don't know. There's been some numbers thrown out there statewide that the most recent pension reforms reduced the state's pension obligation by, I heard, $5 billion, and who knows what that. No one was able to sort of say how they came up with that number. But theoretically, these reforms are going to save money. So, and this was before that's factored in.
I'm a little confused on this. Now, you're saying that someone who retires at, let's say, age 65, and he started at 35, so the money he paid in would cover 89% of the benefits he's getting.
Yeah, let's say over the course of his 65 to whenever he dies, based on the actuarial table, he gets a total benefit, let's just say for easy, $100. Of that $100, over the course of his employment career, he paid 89.
All right, but simultaneously the county or his employer, the town of Chatham or something, is also kicking in as at least 50% of what he's kicking in. What happens to that money?
They're kicking in an assessment, and what it really shows, and that's a good question, Ron, what it really shows is what you're paying for much of the assessment. You're paying for all that unfunded liability that accrued over time prior to 1988. So that's sort of why we're in this, I want to say that in the boat we're in, why we're paying that unfunded liability now, is because I think the pension system started, it's one of the oldest ones in the country, 22 or somewhere way back there. From 22 to 88, let's just say 22, and somebody can correct me in the future. It was pay as you go. So whatever the bill was to all the pensioners, you divided up by 51, that's how much the bill was. But it didn't take into consideration all the people who were working who in 10, 15, 20 years are going to draw a pension. So you're paying, that's what you're really paying. You have to pay that down that unfunded liability. So that's what it says.
So I mean,
so of your assessments, relatively a small portion is going to the pensioner who's been in the system for the whole time.
And that includes, obviously the money that someone gives in now at let's say hired at age 25 or 35, that goes into the pension system. You guys are investing that. If you get a reasonable rate of return,
right.
By the time that person retires, that money is going to double. It seems like a lot of money is going in and not much money is coming out.
We'll talk about that. It's 8%. That's what we just lowered it. So we're actually figuring that we're going to get a little bit less than 8%.
Mark, for those of us who are impaired with math, the reality, if I'm watching the slide correctly, is that when you talk about an aged hire of 25, you're not talking about somebody who was 25 30 years ago. You're talking about a 25-year-old that's getting hired today.
Yeah, that's right. It would be a 9 plus 2.
So we're not talking about...
It's a 9 plus...
Yeah.
It's a 9... If you're hired today at 25... The other kind of anomaly here is, there are not many people who spend 40 years in one place. That it doesn't happen. But it's just an illustration of how if they did, and you would think that those are the people who are really paying, who are going to earn the most pensions, so they're going to have the highest benefit as well. So it shows you that side of it as well.
So in 2040, this assessment problem will be maybe solved, and all costs will then go down?
Yes. Well, can I defer that question, and I'll get to it when I get to the investment piece, just a little bit. It's a couple slides ahead. So let's just talk about investment performance. Julia raises an interesting question, and for us, it's actually you'll see it for the Barnstable County retirement system. The magic year is 2038, and that will be the year that we should be fully funded. And every year, your treasurers in each of your towns get they just got it this year, the actuarial report. And it shows you exactly how much has to be paid every year. And that assumes that you make your actuarially required rate of return. And that's where this slide comes in. This is our investment performance for the quarter and for the year as of 6/30/12. You see it was not a good quarter, so this is April, May, and June. The PRIT fund, all of our money's in the PRIT fund. You know, that's the state's, the one you read about in the paper. Pension Reserve Investment Trust Fund. It's run by the PRIM board, the Pension Reserve Investment Management Board. The chairman is the treasurer of the state. Most of our money in there, almost $600 million, is in the PRIT fund. When we moved our money in the PRIT fund, about 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, we had previously joined these are two real estate accounts. They're called close-end real estate accounts. Once you put the money in, you can't get it out until they're done. So we're still in these two, Allegiance Value Trust and Intercontinental. Intercontinental is actually a fund specializing in New England real estate. You can't get out. So we continue to hold those two investments. You see the cash, but you see for the year and for the quarter, it wasn't such a great period. The fund was down a little bit.
Any thought of getting out of the PRIT fund?
Not an option.
If we were to get out of the PRIT fund, we did talk about this a little bit. That means we would have to try to do something like this. This is the PRIT fund's core fund asset. This is the asset allocation. This is where the rubber hits the road. You have to pick a good asset allocation in order to make money. The PRIT fund has made, since inception, since their creation, I don't know how many years ago, more than 10 certainly, they've earned over 9% annually per year. So that's pretty good. So yeah, we've talked about it, and we've talked about going back to doing it ourselves. Previous to 4 years ago, that's what we did, but we were always behind the PRIT fund, and we sort of got sick and tired of spending all this time beating our head against the wall and trying to beat the PRIT fund and not being able to do it. So I will tell you, we're not big enough, even at $600 million, to do sort of private equity on our own. We just can't. Hedge funds, no way. We're just not big enough. Timber, natural resources, that type of thing, we're just not big enough. So I would say that that's not likely. We're probably going to stick in the PRIT fund. We think they're doing a good job. They're having some issues right now with filling positions. They're having some salary issues over there, but we think they can put those behind them. But
can you tell me what the 19% and
sure.
the 17% is? Because I'm colorblind.
Yeah, sure. It's a little fuzzy too, maybe. Focus here. Yeah.
Looks like private equity.
Domestic equity, 19%. And international equity, 17%. Emerging markets equity, 7%. There's supposed to be another. That's not right. That's core fixed income, but somehow the number got mixed up right, because that's not right. It's about, looks like it's about 15%, I would say. And that's one of the things I sort of wanted to point out. So here's your equity pie, 20, 30, 49%, I think it is, probably close to that. So your equities now are 49%. Remember what it used to be? If we would talk about 70-30, 60-40, 60% equities, equity stocks trade on the market. 40% fixed income, bonds. We moved away from that. And even at the PRIT fund, which is now becoming actually a little bit more conservative, you're talking about 15% in your bonds. That's pretty low.
And so, anybody look to find out why they were down so much in the last quarter? Because, I mean, generally speaking, the stock market's been doing relatively
I don't have it in front of me, Leo, but yeah, I could tell you exactly. I have the report, and it tells you, sort of has the attribution report, tells you exactly what's down, what's up, and why they were down. So yeah, I could share that with you folks. But this is, sort of chasing that 8.25. Remember that this is annually required rate of return is 8.25. This is chasing the 8.25. And then this you have value-added fixed income. Those used to be called junk bonds and those types of things, but junk bond sounds pejorative, so they call it value-added fixed income now. Private equity, mergers and acquisitions, those types of things. Real estate, timber, natural resources, and hedge funds. PIT fund has been very successful, more so than before we joined them than after, but they've been very successful in the private equity market. They have their own staff. It's a very relationship-driven business, investing in private equity. They've been very successful at it. They are actually doing that with their hedge fund allocation now. They had been in what was called fund of funds, basically buying mutual funds and hedge fund products. They're getting out of that, and they're going to do it based on this direct investment into hedge funds, sort of relationship-driven stuff. So,
Mark, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
The slide before,
sure.
can you I just want to make sure I'm not making assumptions. Those are percent numbers?
Percents, yes.
Okay.
Percents for the period. Yep. And if I had done this for the quarter before, all those would have been up. So asset allocation. This is a little bit what I was going to touch on with Julia's question. So we could have extended our funding schedule to 2040. We extended it to 2038. That gives us a little play down the road if the bad investment year or something happens. So we didn't want to go to the full 2040. So we have a little room on that. So back to Julia's question. So in 2038, assuming we make this, because we have an actuarially required rate of return in our investments of 7.875%. It was, a couple of years ago, it was 8.25. Now we reduced it to 8, and then just this year, we reduced it to 7.875. We're trying to bring that down. So, from now until 2038, if we make this every year, then the unfunded liability will be paid off, and that will be zero. But you'll still have that normal cost thing. Everybody who's still in a position working in the public sector in the Barnstable County retirement system will still have a normal cost. So there'll still be an assessment to the towns, but it'll be significantly smaller, be much smaller. So that's the whole notion about this sort of funding schedule when you hear it. It's so that we can pay off the unfunded liability by 2038. So this is the outcome of all that when we did the funding schedule just this past year. The assessments to the member units will increase 6% over the next 2 years, so 2014 and 2015, and then between 4 and 5% annually thereafter. And that's, again, assuming your investment earns 7 and, 7/8, I think, 7 7/8. The other thing we did do when we did the actuarial changes, we were able to increase the COLA base so that a retiree gets a COLA on their retirement. But they only get it on the first 12,000 statutorily. And so one of the things they passed as part of these reform packages was the option, a local option, that you could increase your COLA base from 12,000 to some higher number by $1,000 per year. And what the board decided to do was increase it over the next 3 years to 15,000. And I think we're actually in year 2 of that at this point in time. So this year the COLA base is 14,000. This is our most recent actuarial data, funding and actuarial data, excuse me. So the actuarial that your treasurers have at each of your towns is dated as of 1/1/12. Our funded ratio is 55.5%. It's actually up a little bit from last time. I think we were 53% last time. So you have $522.4 million in unfunded liability. That's what we're paying off through our funding schedule. I said that we're fully funded in 2038. You see the normal cost contributions for the employee and the employer. That's based on percent of payroll. And we'll probably do another actuarial study in 2 years. You're required to do them every 2 years by PARAC. We have been doing them more frequently because of the volatility in the markets especially, so we try to avoid spikes in assessments back to the member units, the towns, so we've been doing them more frequently.
Does that include,
I'm getting an echo, I think.
sorry.
No, we have to prove it.
Does that include, when you do the actuarial study, does that include looking at the age of our employees that we currently have?
Yes.
That may possibly or will be coming possibly due for retirement?
Yes, makes
Because I
sense.
imagine if we have younger staff, we would probably be able to drive that 7% number down.
It does. It takes that into consideration. Actually, they do an examination of what the average age is and where it is. And actually, I think actually our average age went up from this study.
I noticed that on the slide that you had the breakdown of the retirees. I was going to ask you that question back there. It didn't show us, you don't have to go back, but it didn't tell us about the average age of our employees. I think it might be going higher.
I think it went up a little bit. I can check, but that's in the actuarial report. It's right in there. Yep, that's right in there as well.
Yeah, I did, and I think you may have touched on this right at the beginning, but so I missed it, because what I'm trying to figure out is what's not covered in this, looking at it from the position of a town selectman. Health costs, health care has nothing to do with this, right?
Nothing.
You just mentioned.
Correct.
And what about school employees, teachers? Are they included?
Teachers, no. Teachers are members of Mass State Teachers Retirement. However, if you have a person working in a school, admin staff, lunch ladies always comes up for us. They are NOSIC, DY, they're in the system.
Okay, so teachers are not, but
Teachers are not.
but other school-related employees may be.
Yes. Yep.
Mark, can I?
Yeah.
It seems to me that obviously you explained earlier that we're not in, Massachusetts public employees are not in the Social Security system.
Right.
And looking at this data, I'm wondering, why not? I mean, if I was paying Social Security instead of this,
Well, this would tell
what would be
you.
the benefit?
Well, right now, that would tell you, well, it's two things, really. Right now, it would tell you, as an employer, you pay more. That's going up to 6%.
I don't care
So you
what
pay more. Well, your town does, because they're not to come up with the money. So, plus, you're going to have all these people who are eligible for a pension, who all of a sudden, all the people who are succeeding me or are going to be down the road after I retire aren't contributing into the system anymore. So you're going to have a huge liability. It may not be this number, but somebody's got to pay. You're going to have to pay. So I think sort of the point goes back to if say you had just somewhere in there is the right number, I guess. You might as well have people who are like this contributing, because guess what? They're subsidizing the system.
Yeah, but I don't want to subsidize the system.
Well, sure you do. This is not you, Ron. No, so you're talking from the employee perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you're right.
What other perspective would I be
Although
looking at?
I probably won't get the benefit from Social Security that I will from this.
Oh, no?
No.
No.
Well, I'll get into the calculation. So I'm sorry. I thought you were speaking from the employer perspective, which is what I usually get. I very rarely get the employee perspective.
Well, I mean, in Social Security, you get a cost of living allowance, you get a cost of living adjustment on your entire, on every year on everything you get.
But your benefit won't be as, it won't be as great.
It won't be as great as this.
No. Not for a person who's been in the system for 30 years. So you say you're in the system for, say you make maximum age, and I'll have an example of how it sort of calculates out before and after the reforms. But say you're 65, you've been in the system for say 33 or 34 years, you're going to get 80% of your pension. I mean, you're going to get 80% of your salary is going to be your calculation. So, and not everybody gets that. In fact, most people don't. So they don't get 80%. And if you leave at 55, you'll see because of the age factor reduction, and actually one of the reforms was to accelerate the decrease in the age factor, you're going to get less and less. And you'll see that. Okay, let's. So pension reform, we've been doing pension reform, it's a hot topic now, but frankly, you saw back in 87, 88, they did pension reform. So we've been doing pension reform really now for the past 3 or 4 legislative years. They enacted many, and many of them impacted you, and one of those was the $5,000 rule. You guys don't get credit for, you don't get credible service for serving on the assembly anymore. So that was one of the ones. And then during the past 11-12 legislative session, I'm going to go through some of the reforms that they passed. And some of these are pretty significant, and they're actually, we're already seeing unintended impacts impacting people who are retiring now. So, Chapter 176, and what I did for this presentation was break it down into whether it applies to current members, new members, or in this case, current and new members. And this applies to both current and new members. And basically, one of the things that they did was they increased the buyback interest rate if you have prior service. I had prior service in the city of Westfield. I was on Public Works when I was in college. I don't know whether I got credit in the system for it or not. So if I look, and if I buy it back before April 13th of next year, then I pay the regular interest rate, which is half of what the new one will be, which is the actuarial interest rate. So it'll be half of 7 7/8. If I wait and I want to buy it back, I'm going to have to pay 7 7/8. It's like I had that money and I have to pay the interest on it. Previously retired officials who are elected to office who wish to re-enter service, this happens once in a while, they may return their retirement allowance, but they have to do it with buyback interest. Currently, they don't have to pay any interest at all. And one of the things it does, and this makes a lot of sense, is it prorates service according to years of service in each group. We went back to the group calculation. So you calculate the retirement for each group, and then you apply a ratio based on the years of service, whether in group 1 or group 4. Currently, it's the last group worked. So I could work 34 years, 364 days in group 1, and then go to work in group 4 for 1 day, probably have to be longer than that, but this, you get the flavor, and retire. I would be a group 4 employee and I get the group 4 benefit. But now they've prorated it so that I would get a calculation based on 34 years, 364 days, and a calculation based on 1 day. That's an opt-in for current. They didn't want to change it because it would punish people who went from group 4 to group 1, so you have a choice. So if people who go from group 4 to group 1 and retire now, and current employees, they wouldn't pick that because it's punishing them. But after April 2nd of this year, any employees after that, it's mandatory. They have to have it prorated. This is one of the things that applies to both current and new members. It's actually, there's 2 anti-spiking provisions. The first one is for pension calculations. Any salary and wage increases are limited to no more than 10% of the average over the preceding 2 years. And this is one that's impacting people now. We had this come up where it impacted a person who was retiring because 10% average over preceding 2 years isn't hard to get to. It's actually, if you get a 6.6% increase over 2 years, you're going to be at that. You're tripping that wire. And there aren't any exceptions to it. What I mean by exceptions is bona fide personnel moves, promotions, bona fide salary increases, those types of things. Doesn't matter. And what that ends up doing is it trips a calculation from the 3-year average to a 5-year average. And that's happened to people already. So I don't know if that's one that'll get fixed or not fixed, but it's impacting people already. The other anti-spiking one is the annual rate of regular compensation received during the period of 5 consecutive years preceding your retirement. So your 5 years going back, if it exceeds 100% in any 2 consecutive years, then they're going to do a different calculation. But that's very, very unusual. That's where they're looking really for the anti-spiking is on this one. But that one does have exceptions. So if I get a promotion and your promotion doubles your salary, that's okay. Or if you work twice as many hours, so you're going to have 100% more pay, that's okay. It doesn't matter. And then the other thing, just a person retiring from an elected position has to wait 1 year before seeking election to that position again. Previously, you could retire from a position, run for that position again, and get your salary and get your pension. Now, this is what I was talking about in terms of increasing the normal retirement age and accelerating the age factor reduction. So right now, the normal retirement age is 65 for Group 1s and 55 for Group 4s. Group 4 is mostly public safety people. The reform moved the normal retirement age up by 2 years, from 65 to 67 for Group 1 and 55 to 57 for Group 4. But it also increases the rate that the age factor is reduced for each year less than normal retirement age. And the best way to show you what all of that means is to give you an example. So say you have an employee who has 30 years of service. Currently at 65, they would receive 75% of their benefit. So they have their maximum age factor times their years of service, 2.5 times 30. So each year less than 65, if they want to retire before 65, the factor decreases at 0.1. So if that were at 60 years, they would receive 60% of their salary, because it's 2.0 times 30. So it went down 5/10 because it's 5 years of a decrease. But now, under the new law, it's really a double whammy, because the normal age is now 67, so it's higher, and the age factor decreases faster. So if that same person, under the new rules, wanted to retire at 60, the factors decrease 7 times, not 5. And the factors decrease at a faster rate, 0.15 instead of 0.1. So at 60 years old, this is the same person, under the new rules, they'd only get 43.5% of their salary rather than the 60% of their salary. Because the 30 times the 2.5 minus blah, blah, blah. So that's how the age factor works, and that was one of the reforms that they passed. This is new members only, I should mention. So these are for anybody who becomes a member of the system after April 2nd of 2012. That's going to impact a lot of people. And their pension's going to be less. We've asked our actuaries to sort of start thinking about, so how do you figure how much money these are going to save? And it's a hard question. It's a very hard question to kind of think about and to sort of figure out. Some new member-only reforms, sort of changes the termination allowance provision. That's been in the news a lot. And it allows people, employees with 10 or more years of service who failed nomination, re-election, or removed to retire at the minimum retirement age, which is going to be for Group 1 is 60 years old, and for Group 4 is 50. There is no minimum retirement age right now. It eliminates the provision for retirement below the minimum age with 20 or more years of service, and allows superannuation only at the minimum retirement age. If I have 20 years of service, which I do, I could retire right now, even though I'm not at the minimum age. But that's going to be eliminated. So you'll have to be 60 in order to receive a superannuation retirement for all new members after who join after April 2nd.
Don't you think this might spur some those two changes that you're talking about, the second one there, the 20 years or more service, and then the previous slide where you said that the average retirement age is being increased by 2 years, don't you think some of our employees might be calculating whether they should retire now?
Well, they won't apply. If they're current employees, this doesn't apply to them. So they'll be fine. They still have the old
one is only an employee that started from
after April 2nd. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So a current employee will still be able to retire with their maximum age factor at 65. They don't have to wait till 67. Let's see, some of the other provisions, they impose a lot of governance provisions on retirement board members. So now I have to earn CEU credits. So I have extras that I'm auctioning off. I don't see any prohibition in the law about auctioning extras off, so I'm going to do that. It changed some of the rules for same-sex partners to treat them similarly to opposite sex partners. Expanded the process for recovering pension payments from convicted retirees. Currently, it's basically at the point of conviction. Now it goes back to the point of the offense. So it goes back in time. Requires a cost analysis for bills providing specific benefits to certain individuals. I think that's been around for a while. Oh, and then another thing, your towns are going to be, you're going to love this, we do. We have to review all of your collective bargaining documentation for impacts to the pension system. I don't know what that means, but we're supposed to collect now all your collective bargaining agreements and go through them and see if there are things that either don't meet what the pension requirements are or whatever. I'm not sure, but that's going to be a lot of work. And finally, they're going to, you've probably maybe read some stuff in the paper, they're going to study structural reforms to the current pension system. And they're talking about hybrids, and they're talking about combined DB, you know, we have a defined benefit plan. DB, DC, defined contribution plan, which is like a 457 system. The other thing that's coming down the pike is they're going to be looking at health insurance contributions. You can bet your bottom dollar that right now, if you have 10 years and you're vested in the system, you retire, you can get a health insurance benefit. And it's typically at whatever rate the locality offers their retirees. At the county, 75-25. Employer pays 75, employee pays, or retiree pays 25. Some towns are 50-50. They're going to look at that and they're going to say, if you only got 10 years, why are you getting a 75% contribution rate? You should get something less. They're going to look at, they're going to be looking at those types of things next. So that's me and that's Debbie. If you need to contact us. And I thank you for your time.
Okay, is there any other questions for Mark on this long and Mark, I have a question for you, and you probably know the answer already, but I have to bring it up. There was one slide there that said you're obligated by law to act in the interest of the retired employees and the people who are the members, so to speak. All right?
Yes.
So does that mean that if I put money in the Barnstable County Retirement Association, it gets invested in some corporation, I don't like what they're doing, they're investing in white slavery, or they're running sweatshops.
Or buy into Bernie Madoff or something?
Bernie Madoff, but I'm not, well, Bernie would cheat me. These corporations are making money for me, but they're doing it in ways that, you know, they're giving contributions to candidates, you know, running on the Nancy Party ticket or something. Is there any consideration to those kind of things by the...
We've talked about doing, what is that called? He's talking about like green investing. That's not the word, there's a word for it.
Socially responsible.
Socially responsible.
Yes.
Yeah, we have, as a board, chosen not to do that approach at this point.
So we're being socially irresponsible.
We're socially irresponsible.
Yeah, but it's a
Well,
Mark.
We've talked about it, we've looked at it, and we have not chosen to go down that path. I guess is what I'm saying.
okay, and so when I get little cards in the mail to vote for one of these guys, I can ask him that question. The people who are elected members.
You could ask. Yes,
okay.
You could ask them. Yes.
The board member, you, Pat, etc., are acting solely in the interest of members and their beneficiaries. Now,
Yes.
members includes the town of Yarmouth and the town, or does it only mean
No.
employees?
It's the person is a member.
So you're not acting in the interest of Barnstable County or the town of Yarmouth.
And I might add, and that's a fiduciary duty. That's a big standard. Yeah, that's a big standard.
Yeah.
But I don't think, and I don't want to say this in front of Pat because she'll not want to do it anymore. She's very good. If people sort of knew what that burden was, they wouldn't want to do it.
I have a fiduciary responsibility. Hey.
We're lucky. We have not been sued because of any investment losses. We haven't been involved in the Madoff thing. We haven't been involved in those scandals. But yeah, it's a big nut.
But you don't really control much of the investment, because it's sent up to this treasurer, the state, and the state retirement board.
You know, that's a good point, Ron, because when it's sort of the first question we said when we went into the PREP fund is, does that mean I'm not a fiduciary anymore? I don't tell them what to do with their money. They pick that asset allocation. I can have input, I can comment on it, but they're going to do what they want.
Yeah,
But that hasn't absolved me of my fiduciary responsibility, not one iota. The statute that established the PRIP fund specifically made them, exempted them from a fiduciary duty.
Of course.
Now, the good news is by picking the PRIP fund, that's a fiduciarily acceptable decision. But I'm still responsible for that $600 million.
The other question, I know I don't want to beat this to death, but I mean, they are obligated by law to get a return of over 7%, close to 8%.
Theirs is actually 8.25%.
8.25%. I mean, how can you guarantee? Right now, if some retired person with a $500,000 went to the bank, they couldn't do any better than 2%.
No.
If they were able to do an asset allocation like this,
Yeah.
their analysis shows short term that their return is going to be less than 8%. That's why we moved, short term being a 3 to 5 year window. That's why we've been moving our actuarial assumption down, because we were not comfortable at 8.25 where we were a couple of years ago. Their long-term analysis of that investment allocation mix, though, shows substantially higher than 8.25. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but it's probably close to 9. But that's the 30-year window. And don't forget, this is a long-term investment. We're not talking short-term, we're talking long-term. It's a sort of important point. This is a long-term window, not short-term.
All right, well, thank you very much, and someday we may be all beneficiaries of this.
We certainly
Not a great. Is there any communications from public officials? Do I have any communications from members of the public? Hearing none, the Assembly will now convene. We'll begin with proposed resolution 12-03, transfer between budget groups for the Water Protection Collaborative, and I will ask the Chairman of the Finance Committee, Mr. Ullman, for a report on this. It's a resolution, he doesn't have one.
I don't have it.
Sorry, you don't have it. I do.
This is just a resolution, totally separate.
Okay.
These were brought to us by the commissioners at the beach.
Okay, well, I stand corrected. It's a resolution, and you should have received copies of this electronically. It's a decrease of $5,100 and an increase of $5,100, so it's an increase, it's a transfer between two line items.
Not line items, I think it came from.
Well, whatever it is. Well, I need a motion on this. Approve or not approve of resolution 12-03. You guys know what we're talking about? Yes, Leo.
I suggest, only because we have Mark here, that maybe we suspend the rules and be able to ask some questions about this, because I'm not prepared to do anything on it without some information.
And then you have to make a motion to do that.
So moved.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Move to suspend the rules. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Mark,
I think
help me out here.
this is the Water Protection Collaborative one?
Yes.
I think they hired, I should say that in the future tense, but an intern for the Water Protection Collaborative, and he had the money, but it wasn't in a
Salary and wage account.
salary wage account, so we were moving it from whatever account to the salary and wage account. I think that's what that one was, $5,000. Is that what it says? It says like a 239 to a 101 or a 110 or a 100.
Yes, so it's $5,100. Don't go anywhere because we have another one coming up. Okay. Leo?
Just under the discussion part of this, Mr. Speaker, this was brought forth as a resolution as proposed, as instead of an ordinance, so it did not go in front of the Finance Committee for their review?
May I, Mr.
Yes.
Speaker? Anytime we do a transfer out of one, or we change the numbers, 1, 7, 9, and then there's 8, maybe there's another one out there. We have to come to the assembly, we being the commissioners have to come to the assembly with a resolution to seek permission for the transfer. That's in the budget ordinance.
Yes,
Yeah.
but some,
But let me just expand on that. 2, which is professional service and contractual services, 3, supplies, 4, other stuff, and 5, equipment. We can do it amongst those groups ourselves. A department can do it themselves between any one group. They have to come to the commissioners between those 2, 3, 4, and 5 groups.
but there's also times when you have to submit an ordinance to do these transfers between, is that true?
I think you're confusing that with when we do a transfer out of the 2 reserve funds that we have in the budget.
Okay.
But we're not doing that. This is simply under the budget ordinance, a transfer from already appropriated money from a salary and wage account or the other 2 accounts. Like mostly it's salary and wages and fringe benefits. We actually, it's a preferable way to do it is you have to take this sort of extra step to take money out of a salary wage account or put money into a salary wage account.
Yeah, within the department.
And it has to be within, we can't do interdepartmental transfers, you can't do that, period.
Okay. Leo?
I know it may not be protocol, but I think in the future, because we've had a couple of these situations come before us, and we were not lucky enough to have Mark here in the room, and no one was able to answer questions. I would suggest that maybe in the future, when transfers like this come forward, that they can at least be submitted to the Finance Committee so that maybe even questions can be asked ahead of time. I mean, I want to know, what account did we have a increase of $5,100 budgeted in that we foresee now in not even the end of the first quarter of the fiscal year that we don't need it, and we in fact, I want to transfer it to salary and wages to hire an intern, and I'm not sure if Mark's, capable of answering that question on the spot, or if it should have been asked prior.
Personally, I don't say this, my philosophy would be, the department manager feels that that's the best use of the money that we've given him. When he put his budget together back in December, which is when he put it back, maybe he didn't foresee this change in circumstances. I don't have an issue with it, I really don't. It's a sort of he's operating within his budget. If he came back and said, I need $5,000 in a supplemental to do that, then I have maybe different feelings. But if he's operating within his budget and he says, well, I'd rather use that $5,000 instead of buying a widget, that I'd like to hire an intern for for whatever period of time, I would say, okay with me.
Cheryl?
The follow-up question I would have asked is, did the members of the wastewater collaborative vote in any way to support this expenditure?
That's a question you have to ask Andrew.
Okay, we have an ordinance,
I'll move the resolution.
okay.
I'll second.
Okay, so we move to approve proposed resolution 12-03. Is there any other further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? We have anything? We'll take a roll call on this.
Richard Anderson,
Yes.
Cheryl Andrews,
Yes.
Ronald Bergstrom,
Yes.
Leo Kukunis,
No.
Christopher Kanega,
Yes.
James Killian,
Yes.
Marcia King,
Yes.
Teresa Martin,
Yes.
Deborah McCutcheon,
Yes.
Spiro Mitrakostas,
Yes.
John Omen,
Yes.
Patrick Princey,
Yes.
Julia Taylor.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, proposed resolution 12-03 passes with 94.18% voting yes, 5.82% absent.
Okay, now we have come to proposed resolution 12-04.
Wait a minute. Correction, I voted no on that.
I'm sorry, Neil.
That's quite all right.
Yes, you're correct. I'm sorry. 88.51% voting yes, 5.67 no, 5.82 absent. Better.
Okay, now move on to proposed resolution 12-04 to approve certain budget transfers fiscal year 2013 in accordance with Barnstable County ordinance 12-04. This is for the water protection collaborative. Oh, no, excuse me, I got it. This is IT. This is for IT, $50,500. Do we have any comment on this?
What is this?
I see that in the audience, our IT director is here. I would make a motion that we suspend the rules of order and ask him to comment on this, once again, because we have no information about it.
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor of the suspending the rules, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Step up to the plate. And while we're waiting, I tend to agree with Leo. I think that if despite what the policy's been in the past, if we're asked to approve these things, if we're required that we approve them, we should have a recommendation from the Finance Committee. So, does any of did you have questions, Leo?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, could you please explain to me the need for this transfer? And I see there's two line items. You're taking it out of, I presume, some line item that you were planning on purchasing something and increasing a salary line item, or do I have that backwards?
I believe you have that correct. I believe it's coming out of professional services and being requested to be transferred into salary in order to, basically, what's kind of happened, I think 6 months ago, when we discussed the IT budget for FY13, there were questions, frankly, from a couple of you about whether it was time, to kind of look at whether the staff mix was right, or was that amount of professional services really going to be, could be appropriately used by the Barnstable County IT department. And what's gone on is I've continued to reflect on the amount of work and analyze the amount of work we're performing, and looked and see that pretty much we really need some admin support. So in order to try to use professional services funds to do those sorts of things, we tried a couple of things, and it's just not cost effective. So at this point of time, what we're trying to do is to reallocate within the department, our tasks, bring in somebody, from an admin perspective to help to be able to do the things that every other county department has admin support to do, and really provide better services to the all 15 departments, or however many county departments we're serving. So that's in essence what's going on here, is that amount of transfer would cover a person to do that.
Yeah, Leo.
So basically, we're taking a professional services line item where we would be hiring a contractor to do services for us, and you're transferring $50,500 out to hire a new person. This would be a new full-time employee?
Right.
And where does their benefits factor in onto this $50,000?
They're factored into that number. That number covers that, because you only see the group numbered here, but that is in the amount basically.
So by approving this, we basically are hiring another person. So next year's budgetary line item on the salary and wages will be increased by $50,000. Do you anticipate that your line item for the purchase of contract services will remain as it is now with this 50 out, or will you be looking to level fund that at back to 50 again?
I would anticipate that, based on, I would expect that there would be some adjustment for losing this money, for transferring this money.
Let me ask you a question. You said I presume that the contract services would be professional help in the IT department. In other words, you go outsource some of this stuff. But now you're talking about the $50,000 being for an admin person. which to me sounds like they're not really gonna be professional services. They might be answering the phone and doing the formatting and printing and sending. Are you hiring someone to do that?
It's a mix of jobs, which was really a mix of tasks, which is what was getting us into a problem here. If we need somebody, part of this job is designed is to help us do quality assurance on our trouble tickets, our support arm. Well, that takes somebody with some sort of speciality. Another piece of what we're trying to do here is get some assistance on managing the IT department's contracts, its vendor relationships, and its procurement responsibilities. That takes an entirely different sort of person. And the reality is once we started trying to realize we needed help in these different sorts of areas, to hire professional services specialists in all those areas, it jacks up to a lot more than that pretty quickly because of the diverse nature of what we're looking to get done.
Well, that makes, so you basically, all individually, basically are sharing this responsibility. In other words, the employees of your department are sharing these responsibilities as opposed to doing, you know, more involved work with IT. You're also doing all the solo stuff to basically make the office run and make it work.
Exactly.
John?
Why couldn't you foresee this in time to put it right into the budget in its proper place so we could assess it properly with its proper allocation for travel, for benefits, for retirement? It's a backwards way to do it. What was the problem with figuring out?
Maybe I should take that. I think, yeah, that's probably us. We had more of a philosophy where I think we recognized that IT needed more bodies, but we weren't in a position where we were ready to fund permanent positions at that point in time. And I think that's changed, and I think we're trying to recognize it. And, you know, if it's shame on us, shame on us. But I think, you know, that's where we were back then. And back then it was maybe a little bit different than where they are now. So
I just think there's a difference between a $5,000 curveball and a $50,000 curveball, and it bothers me.
Well, there's certainly two different bodies, and you can't compare a summer intern to a sort of permanent position.
Right. And the only, in requesting that you seriously consider this and or approve it, the only thing I would add to what Mark said is the county commissioners and the Assembly of Delegates, the ability that you've worked with us and you've been able to allow us to grow our IT budget for the county this year. In these last 2 years. That's a great thing, but it kind of has exacerbated the situation. You know, it's made it harder for us to be able to do the types of tasks that I've talked to you because the scale of them has increased at the same time. We could identify the need before, but as the budget has gone up, you know, the amount of time to do all of those tasks has gone up exponentially.
If you can use, if this would mean that the higher paid employees can operate more efficiently and spend a better amount of their time doing the things that they are good at, I can see it. You know, I mean, there may be some difficulty as to how the Assembly deals with this. The issue is that if we take this request as evidence that maybe they didn't need the 50,000, you know, initially, they're never going to come and ask for another request like this. In other words, so, I mean, they're not increasing their budget, so I don't see what the issue is. We'll have to beat it, you know, when we see the new budget, then we can go in, but as far as a transfer like this during the existing fiscal year, I mean, if we were to say, well, geez, you know, you guys could have come in at a lower number, like I say, we'll never hear from them again during the fiscal year. Pat, did you have something to say?
Yes. Is any part of the justification for this, there was mentioned at the last meeting with towns, I think it might have been Truro, looking for what was it, Wellesley? Looking for the support for their town's IT department through the county services, and they were also going to be, you know, reciprocating that extra resource through funds they're transferring into the county. Is there a justification relative to that?
Well, I do say that it impacted the work level. It definitely impacted the work level from an admin perspective here. The reality is, in addition to the $1.whatever million budget that the Assembly Delegates has been able to grant us, you know, we are actually in effect managing the $140,000 town of Wellfleet IT budget too, and trying to to figure out what we are even committed to from a contractual point of view with third-party vendors and support and those things. So it kind of was like the
Straw that broke the camel's back?
exactly the final tipping point to kind of push this. So yeah, and yes is basically the easiest answer to that question.
Did you, I'm relatively new to this board, but did you have the contract through the town of Wellfleet before the last budget cycle?
No, that contract, the negotiations started in March and the contract was not signed until June of this year.
Speaker.
Leo, and then
Actually,
Is a technical,
Sorry.
as a technical question, $50,000 will be prorated, or $50,000 will be expended
Prorated based on hire date.
based on when you hire. And for the edification of the public, if not the assembly, could you, it's not necessarily directed to you, but maybe to the speaker, could you explain the road that this resolution traveled to get to this point?
They handed it to us.
When you said they,
the commissioners.
so the county commissioners, this request would have gone to the county administrator, to the county commissioners, and then presented to the assembly.
You got a copy?
Yeah, just to maybe reiterate, the resolution for transfer process originates in those dark and dank sections of the budget ordinance in the back. I don't remember which one it is. Janice should know, but she doesn't either, because we don't read those. But once in a while, I tear out those back damp and dank sections and I read them, and they say, it tells, and this started maybe a few years ago, what you have to do. And it says if you want to transfer between a one and a salary account, a salary group, and a fringe benefit, mostly those two, and I think there's one other kind of weird group in there, that you have to go to the assembly. And so that's where this all originates from. So what a typical process is a department, and this is not a frequent process by any means. I think there's I think 3 of them in front of you now. The one that we submitted today, that Commissioner Flynn submitted today, is one we do every year. That one we come to you every year for the AmeriCorps program one. That's typically the only one we do. There's maybe 1 or 2 others that appear infrequently that I can't even remember. So this is a little bit unusual. But typically what will happen, a department manager will say, I need money for this, that, or the other thing in a 1 account or in a 9 account. And typically I will, because that's a pain in the butt for me, I will try to dissuade them from that. So we'll have a conversation about, is there another way to do that? And so that's why there aren't too many of these, because we usually try to find a different way to do it. So if we can't find another way and we say, okay, that makes sense, then I will put together the resolution, I bring it to the commissioners, the chair of the commissioner signs it, and we transmit it to you guys.
All right, but yeah, Julie, and I haven't forgotten Marcia, don't worry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, since there seem to be a lot of questions, and in my 12 years on the board, I've not seen that many resolutions, and the magnitude, I think, of the value at $50,000, I think, is really kind of giving some adjective to all
Sure,
of us.
yeah.
I would suggest, and I'm not sure I need to make a motion, is that it does come in front of the finance committee, so that it can be vetted, and the other members then can sit and listen to it, because I think this, to me, it's the value is so large, the question becomes, a lot of other ancillary questions have come up, and so that's what I would like to see, because I think there are too many variables.
Well, the issue is this, Mark, is that obviously in the process that you described, what happens is that you submit it, right? And it's given to the full assembly after we convene. So basically all we've got this, in other words, it doesn't even have a cover letter.
Oh, I'm not objecting, Mr. Speaker, and
I understand.
and I hate when people say this to me. That's how we've always done it. That's sort of the answer, why we're in this quandary.
Well, I stupidly assumed, probably not even looking at it, that it was going to go to the finance committee, but now I realize the process, and I'm sure that Janice knows this too, the process in the past has been exactly as you describe it. I mean, I personally don't have an objection to this. From what I'm gleaning is you have a bunch of people who are computer professionals who are doing their thing, And they don't want to have to take, rather than have, they don't want to take time out to call a supplier and tell them they need more paper clips and to do other things that are not directly related to their responsibility. So rather than hire outside help with the 50,000, they can in turn compensate that by spending more of their time on those things and have an admin person who will basically run the office and do the other stuff. That's how I see this 50,000. It doesn't sound like a bad idea. Julie?
Well, I agree with Marcia. I think, they've done the right thing. It's just that it could be that we would like to change our procedures if people feel strongly about it, that it amounts over X would go to the finance committee, even though it's not an ordinance, even though it's just a
Well,
resolution.
except there's no law that says we can't do that. We can't do that.
And we can do that, of course, and we can have that be a standard procedure if we want to. I would go ahead and, personally, I'd be willing to vote it, but if people don't want to do that, then we can put it off.
Teresa?
I just want to say why I'm uncomfortable with this, because basically between this and the other one, the IT staff is adding 2 FTEs outside the normal budget process, and that makes me very uncomfortable.
Marcia?
Mr. Speaker, I'm going to make a motion to send this resolution 1204 to the finance committee for review. And then-
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any other further comment on the motion on the table? Hearing none, all those in favor, we need a
Yeah, we need a
Just you do a roll call.
roll call? Let's do a roll call. Doesn't hurt. I don't think we need one.
Obviously, we get people on
Richard?
It doesn't, the motion does not, I'll take a roll call, but the motion does not contain any financial implications. Take the roll call.
Richard Anderson?
Yes.
Cheryl Andrews?
Yes.
Ronald Bergstrom?
Yes.
Leo Kokonis?
Yes.
Christopher Canega?
Yes.
James Killian?
Yes.
Marcia King?
Yes.
Teresa Martin?
Yes.
Deborah McCutcheon?
Yes.
Spiro Mitrakostas?
Yes.
John Ullman?
Yes.
Patrick Princey?
Yes.
Julia Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, it passes by 94.18%. Yes, 5.82% no. 5.82% are absent, 94.18 vote yes.
Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Speaker, before we leave this, Representative Mr. Princey asked a question in regards to the association between the IT department and the town of Wellfleet. I just want to bring for your knowledge that there is another proposal coming forward to add $80,000, $88,000 to their budget, which equals the direct amount that they will be billing the town of Wellfleet. I think that kind of better might answer your question that was asked previous. So although this may be indirectly related to that situation, you should be aware that there is going to be a proposal coming forward for your consideration, specifically for an amount of money dedicated to that.
Okay, and I don't see it on the agenda, which would normally be the report from the committees. So,
Because they would technically formally give a report next week before you vote on the proposed ordinance.
right, because they haven't had a chance to,
There's no
approve their
formal-
minutes. Okay, well, legal's, the comment is timely then. Okay, so so the ball is in the court of the chairman of the finance committee, Mr. Ullman, and we will schedule a hearing on that.
I think sooner is better than later. If we can do it, it's just a committee meeting. Why can't we do it at 3 o'clock before next meeting?
Okay, we'll schedule that, if it's all right with your members, if they can all make it. Janice will send out a notice.
Thank you.
We now move on to reports from the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At the next meeting, just to fast forward a little bit, you will be voting on one proposed resolution that was submitted today by the commissioners. Unless you want that to go to committee, that's from AmeriCorps. Why bring it forward if you want that to go to a committee for?
Well, we can't vote on that now, so we'll bring it forward, and if they want to go to
Okay.
committee, we can vote.
You will also be voting on one proposed ordinance, the one that was at committee today for IT, and there will be a committee meeting next week, not a public hearing, because it's not an ordinance. Ordinances get public hearings. This is not an ordinance, so it'll be a committee meeting to bring forward a recommendation to you regarding proposed resolution 1204.
Okay.
And I think that's it. Quit while I'm ahead.
Mr. Speaker?
Yes.
I'm going to beg your indulgence and ask the clerk for some information. And maybe you can get it if we don't have it, because I know under other business, we may be taking some time to discuss some resolutions. About 6 months ago, we were given a projected general fund balance, and it's now past the close of the year, and I'm wondering if we can ask for an actual general fund balance. In lieu of having the county administrator here to do it, we might in fact just get.
Did you not get the budget? Is that not included?
It's not included. The general fund balance changes haven't been included in it. That's why I'm asking for it. So I would be satisfied if they just sent us that accounting before we can actually have the county administrator back to talk about the budget.
I can
Thanks.
ask.
Okay, is there any other business report? Wait a minute, where are we? Yes. Any other business to be brought before the assembly? Leo?
Mr. Speaker, I have sent to the clerk electronically, and now I would like to hand in some proposed resolutions. There are 5 of them in all. I have at the tail piece page here, I have a small paragraph which states that it will be up to the speaker and the clerk to not only number the resolutions, but bring them forward for discussion and pass them off to the members.
Thank you. Okay, well, we'll send these out. We actually have sent a copy of these. Send it to the assembly.
No, I only sent them to you.
Okay, well now they're all going to get it. Now they can officially submit it. Is there any other business to be brought before the assembly?
It's my turn. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, move to second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?